morning, everyone. Anthony Wall Street Trader, 10:26 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on January 8th, 2023. Here to talk about HOLO Chain or HOT US dollar. This is not financial advice, it's educational. Click the subscribe, click the bell, click the thumbs up, share the video. Intraday updates on Wall Street Chart 12. Let's move forward. Okay, before we get into all the technicals, let's just quickly review. On the last video, we spoke much more in detail on the projects, what they were about. Now, traditionally and even currently, the majority of development is still living in client server land. Client server is the traditional older technology. Yeah, we moved to the cloud. I'd say that that's been one big shift in paradigm. But since then, we've also moved into more starting to get into the blockchain world over the past few years. A lot more has been done by big mega cap companies on blockchain, as well as medium sized companies. Now we're entering into peer to peer capability where you don't need these blockchain intermediaries to validate and transact. What's nice about it is you can skirt around Ethereum and other high gas costs by using Chain, which is primarily useful from a peer-to-peer validation, but also on, making sure that each of these agents or peers have their own distributed cache. Now, what's impressive about it is it's lower costs. Now, remember, we're moving into a pretty tight, cost control environment as we potentially start hitting recessions. Companies out there are starting to lay off people. They're looking for alternatives to cheapen their costs. Holochain foots that bill for many of the types of implementations that are needed. Now let's go into a couple of other things. Their new release is coming out. I just noticed this earlier today. Is the first beta release is due January 26, 2023. They already have an early release candidate. You know, this whole peer-to-peer distributed app framework is much more closely aligned with Web 5, which is more of the Jack Dorsey view of the world. But regardless of that, most importantly and most impressively is, we are getting into that recession front. We've got, people looking for cheaper ways to build things, faster ways to build things. And I think this definitely foots the bill. There's a lot more upfront work that you have to do in terms of understanding the graph type of, the graph environment. There's more design and thought process up front, but subsequent portions of the development lifecycle are vastly improved on the back of that. So net win for HoloChain. Now let's just talk about some of the other things around some of the use cases, high level. Now we went through the projects. I wasn't thrilled with the projects, and I mentioned on the last video that they could do more than just what we were looking at on their website, from the projects they're currently working on. Now they deal with social networks. I think that's key. Chat, simple things where it's communications between and chattiness and gossipy stuff across multiple different people, individuals themselves that have access to these apps. And, social networks and chat are one great use case. Groupware, knowledge sharing, collaboration, project management, all of these things, even marketplaces, I think that should be up closer to the top. But I think that there's a lot going on across multiple use cases that Holochain will likely come out with in the future. I think the company probably wants to get a little more integrated into companies to help them get the adoption. But I understand peer-to-peer is very different than the traditional or becoming traditional blockchain technology. But this is the next level, a completely different paradigm than what you would see with blockchain, and much cheaper as well. So let's move into the markets and let's just take a quick look at a couple of things. Number one, Holo. We're going to look at Holo US dollar. And then we're going to measure these other two drivers that, when multiplied together, come up with Holo US dollar. So the inner strength is the first one, or sorry, the second one. We're going to look at Hot USD first. Then we're going to look at the two underlying pairs, the inner strength, which is Holo to Bitcoin, and then we're going to look at the benchmark Bitcoin itself, because these things are interrelated. Now let's take a look over at the charts. Hot US dollar, we're at literally 0.0014, or close to 0.0015. Now, as you can see, we have this giant, as discussed in the last video, we've got this giant resistance line in red, and then we've got this giant support line in green. Now, in terms of the what we could hope to expect is we're running through this channel right now. This is a shorter term channel starting December 22. This was around the time when they started announcing their release for that January 2023 release date for the beta release. So that's very, very key. I think once you get that out the door, you get much more. You'll start to see more acceleration in adoption, but that needs to be coupled with proper proper marketing of Holo, and I think these guys will do that. So in the meantime, we do have a short-term resistance up at 15. 0.001507. But as we go forward, we really want to stay above this green line of support. You break that green line of support, and then we can possibly start heading down. But I have a feeling there's a couple of things. Again, like number one, recession coming, people trying to manage costs, individuals trying to manage costs, people who are developing this stuff want to do it on the cheap. This is one great way to do it. Now, as you can see over here, the bigger, longer term resistance line, we have resistance up around 0.0156. So it's not too far away. And if we can continue with what I consider a January rally, and I think we will get it, and burst through this red resistance line, we could easily climb up to 19. Once we get to 19, we can get up to 26. 19 is a good 30 something percent from where we are right now, and 26, well, that would be almost the double at this point. So now let's go take a look at the underlying pairs. Number one, the inner strength of Holo. How are we performing versus Bitcoin? And we are still over this support line right over here. The support line is around 85. We've got resistance up at 93. Now, again, if we break through this resistance line, that's a good sign. We could easily start trekking up, probably to 111, 112 in that range first, maybe hit a little bumpy boo, and then possibly start heading back up there to around 149 on the underlying inner strength. Now let's look at benchmark itself, which I also think may see a pretty reasonable rally. Gold is expected to outperform everything this year based on many big Wall Street analysts. And, Bitcoin is no different. Bitcoin is a fixed supply similar to gold. And I think that Bitcoin will start to move higher because of the fact it is looked at as digital gold. Now we are still literally struggling through this support line right here. We're literally sitting dab right on it. The bar is higher. As we go forward in time, the support line goes higher and higher. So this thing needs to stay above that support line in order for us to make it happen in Bitcoin. However, we do have this the resistance line here, which is also something we need to get over. And we have an intersection between the support and resistance. And the key here is to get past this red line and staying above this green line. And that's really the key. If we don't get what we need here and we start heading down, well, we could go down easily 25 to 30, 25 to 28%, all the way down to around 12,000 on Bitcoin. I just think that it's not likely. I still feel pretty comfortable that this first month we will see a rally. Congress kind of got their stuff sorted out and should be good for companies. In the meantime, that's pretty much it on Holo. Let's see how this thing pans out. I'll send another video out within the next couple of days. Take care.